With the Dark Sea coming so soon to Arcane Odyssey, it's time for an update video again. Probably been a full month since the last one, so here we go. I'll structure this video into different parts, as usual, which are the Dark Sea mechanics, the new items, the brig, new moves, dodge reflex, and of course balancing. So chapter 1. When you first sail into the Dark Sea, perhaps on a ketch or a caravel, you might notice that your ship isn't taking damage. And this is because to enter the first range of the Dark Sea, you'll only need 45 stability to safely sail in it. In this first range you won't even gain insanity either, but in exchange for this there is much less reward to be found in this first range. But as you go further on, you'll need 80 plus stability to negate wave damage, which is best done with a brig. Each range takes about 5 minutes on a max speed brig to cross, assuming you take no detours and don't stop at all. Within the Dark Sea, there is heavy fog, and clear sight potions have half potency to prevent you from clearing it entirely. Dark Sea island generation is completely randomized, with 17 biomes, size and height multipliers, and a few more variations, so every island in there is unique and never seen before. They load in once you're within render distance, and unload forever once no more players are within that render distance. This of course helps the unknown sense of the Dark Sea, and makes locating friends or targets difficult within it. But when you have friends with you, dying in the Dark Sea will cause you to be put in a severely injured state, in which you'll die over the course of the next 60 seconds. Your health will tick down from 60, and you'll be immobilized and unable to use moves. There will also be a large wound on your torso, and your vision will turn more red and blurred until you die. That is, of course, if you don't get revived by a party member. You can only get revived once per expedition though, and will die normally if you get killed again. Other things in the Dark Sea include silver and gold cooking pots and cauldrons, which make significantly stronger food and potions. But on these islands, enemies also spawn with unique Dark Sea exclusive weapons. These enemies become stronger the higher tier insanity range you find yourself in. You also find magic-imbued lightning, rain, and large waves in the Dark Sea, which have much higher damage than the normal water variations in the Bronze Sea. Within the Dark Sea, you'll find Dark Sea chests replace bronze chests, which drop high-level ship parts, new loot, exotic gems, scrolls, and rare weapons. Chapter 2. Moving into 1.14, you'll notice some new items being added. So what do they include? Well, I've already mentioned that the Dark Sea enemies will have their own unique weapons, but I only have pictures of 2 of them which are on screen right now. These of course aren't the best pictures, but I don't have any actual leaks. Moving on, there are a boatload of new ship parts. Let that sink in. A boatload of new ship parts. I'd like to just say I wrote that into the script and chose to leave it in. Yeah. And they include mortars, other variations of mortars, new sailcloths, new ship enchants, and the warship enchant, which is more powerful and extreme enchant than the others in exchange for reducing another stat. There are also new armor sets which I believe give the drawback stat, which if you don't know what that is, you lose 3% health for each move casted per drawback that you have equipped. We know the names of 2 Dark Sea armor sets currently, which are called Vetrachos and Dark Bronze sets. Back on topic though, drawback is in exchange for overly strong stats on an item. The lore reason for this given by Vetex is that the items are so powerful that they're tearing your body apart. There's also a 1 in 10 chance in a Dark Sea that an enemy will drop an item with the Atlantean modifier. What that does is add another stat onto an item that it doesn't already have. Take this Calvus chestplate for an example. It's been given an extra 100 defense or so by the Atlantean multiplier. Non-Dark Sea items, like said Calvus chestplate, can be given the modifier using a rare item called Atlantean Essence, which will permanently apply it to whatever you want it to be on. If an item doesn't have either power or defense, it'll roll for either one of them first, and if it has power and defense, then it will roll for something else. Chapter 3. The brig is the new boat available for sailing the Dark Sea in 1.14, and it stands out from the boats available in just about every way imaginable. It's bigger, faster, tougher, and stronger. The brig has 12 cannons on each side, which is 3-fold what the ketch has. This doesn't even include the 2 front-facing cannons, but that's not all of the brig's firepower. It also has the option for a siege weapon, which is the mortar or its other variants, which will rain fire upon enemy ships. Hold control while commanding your ship to aim your mortar and ruin the weather for a nearby pirate ship. Brigs also have a ram slot and 1200 base ram strength to really just shred whatever it hits, and with 12k base health, there's no stopping that behemoth of a ship rushing at you. It will also be an absolute tank, as hull armors are getting double defense now, and assuming new hull armors are getting added, you could likely reach over 20k HP on a brig. But a brig's health and firepower aren't its only standout features. It also has 75% stability on base, which easily allows you to survive the waves in the Dark Sea. As long as you get 5 more stability, which is achievable solely with Edward Kenton equipped, you can sail the Dark Sea without a scratch on your boat from the waves. And within the captain's quarters, you'll find a fish tank, picture frames where you can place decals, a gem rack where you can just store gems I guess, and the banner of every kingdom you visit in the story is displayed on the wall. Brig also has 4 slots for deckhands, compared to the ketch having 3 and caravel having 2. Unfortunately though, the brig will set you back 20,000 galleons. Chapter 4. 6 new moves have been added to the game in this update, and some of them are just better than others. There are 2 moves for each route, so beginning with magic there's Javelin, which is hybrid available, and like a sticky little pulsar which has small size and can apply synergies and DOTs. It's probably best used for spamming clear synergies. The Balanced server definitely aren't fans of it, but maybe people will like it maybe past when this video releases, as it was written on the 27th of September to release on October 3rd. Javelin likely has its niche uses, but I doubt it will be used that much though. Surge is a move which sends constant damage in the direction you aim in an AoE. It used to be able to one-shot Calvus, but Vetex had to tone the powered scaling down to prevent that from happening. It can be held for up to 8 seconds, and during the move you have some damage resistance. Moving on to fighting styles moves, they are receiving moves called Uppercut and Seleno. Uppercut is something of a combo extender which launches both players into the air, allowing some vile combos. It overall looks quite cool and a solid move. Seleno is a multi-hit air movement which seems to do a lot of damage as it progresses through it. It does about 3 ticks of something similar to a shockwave smash, from what I've seen. Onto the weapons moves, there is Flying Phoenix and Sparrow Thrust. Flying Phoenix is a double hit move with the same concept and visuals as the Flying Slash from Arcane Adventures, and it seems to have some very high damage. It hits once when it hits the target and a second time as it leaves the target's hitbox. Sparrow Thrust is the new move for spears, functioning similarly to Shockwave Smash, so it's obviously a really good move. It of course being a weapon skill can't be customized to hit multiple times like Shockwave though, but still seems to do strong damage regardless of that. Chapter 5. Dodge reflexes are a replacement to your dodge which can only be used in the air, with 2 charges separate from your air movements. There are 3 types of dodge reflexes which are called burst, barrier and teleport. Burst dodge is similar to a regular dodge, and it obviously just goes further and is much cooler. Barriers go the shortest distance of any dodge, as they're used by heavy magics and iron leg, but they grant damage resistance during the dash. Teleport dashes are somewhat shorter than burst in exchange for disrupting tracking and being a literal teleport move. Dodge reflexes are going to make PvP so much more fast-paced with the extra air movement. Dodge reflex will also give mage its first way to move horizontally in the air, which is pretty groundbreaking. With their addition, dodge reflex will completely change PvP. And finally, Chapter 6. Right off the bat, mobility skills need to face an enemy to go full distance, so you can chase but you can't run. Secondary strats have also received a formula change, which curves less but punishes low investment with less effects. Fighting styles and weapons are getting a startup and end lag buff, meaning speed increases will directly cut the frames instead of dividing them. Of course, the base attack speed buff, which gives you 20% more speed on startup, is gone, which makes sense as minimal attack speed gave you an extra 20% in this update and before it. Conjurer imbue is getting a 0.025 damage affinity buff, however they will also experience lower or higher power affinity depending on their damage affinity, as it now also applies a power affinity. What this means is that light conjurer and other ones with low damage affinities will actually deal the intended low damage, and the fast conjurer imbues are being nerfed with lower affinities than they'd have with the buffs. Light, lightning, plasma and wind are all receiving damage and speed nerfs. Sand is receiving an imbue damage nerf, which really just means it'll have the same affinity that it does now. Shadow and snow are also receiving speed nerfs. I find the snow speed nerf just hilarious, because they're taking away 0.025 speed away from the imbue. I know it's to be consistent, but it's not even doing anything at that point. Water, explosion, sand and acid are all having their bleed synergy lowered from 15% to 10%. Clear synergies also no longer have a cooldown, as right now they have a 3-second cooldown for no reason. Why they haven't had one is a mystery. Moving on, energy costs are getting standardized across all builds, so hybrids won't have to deal with energy regen much more than pure builds, allowing for higher aggression in hybrids. Moving on to magic, wind is getting a damage nerf to 0.825, which should balance it with its other stats, because as of right now it has decent damage, can freeze, and is big and fast. Hammer and fist are getting patched, but blast hitbox is being buffed by 20% as a compensation. This won't really help though, as hammer and fist give way more than 20% size according to what I've been told. Beam is also being changed to have standardized damage scaling at a multiplier of 0.65, and double beam's damage buff is going to be 40% instead of the current 50%. Snare is receiving an end lag buff, as right now you can lose half your health from missing a snare. Pulsar is getting an overall damage buff and clash rates buff, which will hopefully help it not get clashed by anything and everything. Moving on to fighting styles, boxing is receiving a speed nerf from 1.3 to 1.2 as part of the compensation for the new speed changes. Thermofist is having its damage lowered to 0.775 and no longer gains for heats from M1s and steps. Sailors is having a size fix, which is a buff if you didn't know, and its damage lowered to 0.9. Crash is getting damage standardized to 1.1 and smash minimum size is being halved. I've talked about what that means in another video, and let's be real, this video has lasted so long already. Shot is also receiving standardized damage at 0.85, and Axe/2 at 1.05. Moving on to weapons, weapon switch time is being massively lowered to match magic and fighting styles. Rare and uncommon base damage is also being lowered to 15 and 10 respectively. This of course excludes Sunken Sword, as it's extremely rare and valuable. Draken Gale is getting 20% more damage in exchange for 20% more end lag, and Polearm Throw is getting 10% more damage and incredible clash rates to give it its own niche use of countering heavy skills. Warrior is also having its Awakening bonus lowered from 10% damage and speed to 5% damage and speed, because Warrior just does too much damage and also needs to be balanced with new speed changes. Warlords and Warlocks can now access Step on their fighting style if they have 120 strength, and that's it. Please, for the love of God, subscribe and join the Discord now. I spent too long writing this and you're patient enough to sit through it. That's all, 3 days until the update.